Welcome everyone! In this video, we are going to be talking Lanturn. Now, I know the minute I get this video up, they're going to be announcing the new season, so even if they do do something with Lanturn or don't quite get it right, we can still talk about some things that I would like to see with Lanturn. Now, to be clear, just to set this straight right off the bat, personally, I don't mind Lanturn, but I can totally see where a lot of people are coming from with Lanturn. I think Niantic meant very well with giving that thing Surf. Giving it a 5 cycle on a potential bait move with Stab was a fantastic idea. But I know for many people, it can just seem a little bit too oppressive with that Surf 5 cycle with Stab. That combined with its extreme bulk really makes Lanturn feel unfair, I would say. I think that's fair to say. It would feel unfair going up against. But personally, again, I like a 5 cycle on Lanturn. I honestly don't mind where it is. It is challenging to go up against, but honestly, I don't mind it. I like having that bait potential with the 5 cycle. But again, I can totally see where a lot of people are coming from on Lanturn. So in this video, we're going to look at what we could do to maybe, I would say maybe balance it out a little bit. That fix is going to involve something quite unprecedented, but we will get into that. But first, let's have a look at PV Poke and have a closer look at Lanturn and see why some people might have a problem with it. So let's have a look at PV Poke really quick here. All right, guys, here we are on PV Poke in the battle simulations. We've got it set to multi. We've got Lanturn in here up against the Open Great League. We're going to have a look at the 2s first. That is always where I like to start. Let's have a look here. All right, so in the 2s, Lanturn is right at baseline. If you guys caught my Metacham breakdown, you will know that when I'm analyzing a Pokemon and I'm looking at win rates, I look for 50-50. That's baseline, that's average, that's decent. If it's slightly above 50%, like let's say with Metacham, in that mid 50% range, I think that's a good Pokemon, not particularly broken. And as we see here, Lanturn is right at baseline in the 2s. So let's have a look at the 1s. Now this is where Lanturn gets a little bit questionable here. So now look, in the 1s, it's at a 58% win rate here. Okay, so like I said, if it's in the mid 50s, I think that's a good Pokemon. It's good, but not particularly broken. But as I mentioned in my Metacham video, if a Pokemon starts getting into that 60% range, and if it's in the mid 60s and beyond, forget about it. The thing's broken. We gotta do something to balance it out. But as we can see, Lanturn is venturing into that territory when we look at the 1s. So given that, it's on the cusp. It's getting there, not quite there, but getting there, and that's what a lot of people are feeling. Here in the 1s here. It's the same in the 0s, and that's what people are feeling as well, because Lanturn can just hang in there with that bulk and just play out the 0s and do quite good in a lot of neutral situations, let alone its super effective situations. So this is the 0s. It's also venturing into that territory, not quite there, but it is high enough to have a little examination here. So I totally see where a lot of people are coming from. Again, personally, I don't mind where Lanturn is right now, both using it and going up against it. Like I said, it can be challenging to go up against something like that, but I think Lanturn serves a very strong purpose in this meta. And I think exploring, messing around with its moveset, You've got to tread lightly there because you don't want to completely kill off a Pokemon that keeps our flyers in check and has strong neutral play across the board. I just don't think that's a good idea. I think we need strong generalists that have play up against various things in the meta, and that is something that Lanturn does, while also keeping flyers in check. We don't want flyers getting too out of control as we have seen in the past. So we definitely need to tread lightly with Lanturn, guys. Let's not be too extreme with this, but my fix, I've got 2 fixes in mind, and both of them would require something quite unprecedented in Go Battle League. So again, this is where we're feeling it with Lanturn. It's got 58% rate in the win rate and the ones and zeros. The twos, it is very much average in the twos, so that sort of balances out a little bit. And as per usual with this channel, this definitely stems from not having enough counters in the meta, combined with what I mentioned previously as well. The problem is a lot of the grass types are just not being used, and of course that is Lanturn's kryptonite. It's generally just strong neutral matchups that are keeping Lanturn, not keeping Lanturn, but allowing people to combat Lanturn. Like Metacham has strong neutral play up against it. We've got G-Fisk in the meta, tanks like Basti and Reggie. Swampert can do things in certain shielding scenarios. And we've got the buffed ice types that have the ground coverage as well, plus the Mud Boys. So we've got checks, but not enough. We need some grass in this meta for sure. Not only for Lanturn, but to help out with the buffed mud, I call them mud types, the buffed Mud Boys, if you will. So we'll look at some new meta threats, as well as looking at a couple of potential fixes for Lanturn as well. So before we get into the new meta threats, let's look at my 2 potential fixes for Lanturn. Let's have a look at that. All right, guys, here we are. Holy smokes, this is crazy. This is crazy because my fixes, and I think the only reasonable route to pursue in Lanturn, is to actually remove a move from a Pokemon's charge pool. That is unprecedented. That is not something that I can recall them ever doing. I don't know if they will ever do it. It is unprecedented, and it is venturing into some interesting territory, let's just say, because if we can take a move and set this precedent on Lanturn, that opens up Pandora's box, because we can now do that with everything else. So I know this is something I've been thinking about myself quietly. I did not dare mention it or put it out there. It's just something I've been thinking about myself, and I know others in the community have thought about this and put it out there as well. So great minds do indeed think alike. So this would require taking Surf away. Again, that opens Pandora's box for other Pokemon, Swampert, but we won't go there. This is about Lanturn. So if we're going to do this, here we are. The reason why it's the most reasonable, fair, and logical route to pursue is because you cannot go into Surf and start messing around with its damage or energy. There are far too many Pokemon that rely on Surf that are not in need of any fixing. And that nerfing a move like Surf, which has such broad distribution, would have adverse effects on a lot of Pokemon that rely on this move, again, that are not in need of any fixing. So that is the fair and logical thing to do. I know Niantic meant well, and again, I'm not advocating for this. To be very clear, I'm okay with where Lanturn is now. It's on the cusp. It is challenging, but it serves a very strong and necessary purpose in the meta. But we would have to take Surf away. And I've got Whirlpool. This is a proposed new fast attack that deals water type damage. I first proposed this in my wish list, and it has been in other videos since then. This would be a new fast attack dealing water type damage. It's essentially a Spark clone. It's a 2-turn water type fast move that deals 4 damage and 8 energy. So in both of my options, we would be removing Surf, giving it this move, because I think that's going to provide the much needed balance and not completely make Lanturn completely irrelevant, because I think we need to compensate for the damage that Surf is doing, and I think we can spread that out between its fast move pressure and its charge moves. So both options involve giving it this. Yes, I know it does have Water Gun, but Water Gun, quite impressive, has stab, but is very slow. Personally, I think Lanturn does very well with a 5-cycle bait potential on its on Surf right now. I think that baiting is very much necessary. I know a lot of you out there are like, well, I never bait. You definitely have to bait in Go Battle League, especially at the highest levels. There are just certain circumstances where it is absolutely necessary to bait to get the job done. I really don't want to see Lanturn lose that ability. So an option one, which is the one that I'm leaning most toward, is taking away Surf, giving it Bubble Beam, which it can learn in the main series. It doesn't currently know that now in Pokemon Go, but if it can learn it in the main series, it can learn it in Go. So Whirlpool, Bubble Beam, you're going to drastically reduce the damage output on its 5-cycle. Thunderbolt will now be its primary mode of attack. Bubble Beam still keeps that 5-cycle intact, but does less damage, obviously. Can still bait shields on that 5-cycle, and you can apply a nice little debuff. So I think that that's a balanced approach, and the one that I would lean most toward. And then we've got option 2 here, where we also give it a newly proposed 2-turn water type fast move, Spark Clone that deals water damage, while also giving it Scald. Again, another move that it can learn in the main series, does not currently know it now. The problem with option 2 is that it loses that 5-cycle. It now goes to a 7-6-6 cycle on its water type move, which would be Scald. That's one that I'm not crazy about, but I think that would be a nice compromise, because giving it that water fast move pressure while still having moderate energy generation, I think would be a nice balanced approach. The problem with option 2 is it's very binary. I don't like binary Pokemon because it's just far too predictable, especially at the highest levels. Obviously, if Thunderbolt is resisted, they know what's coming their way, so there's no baiting potential there, really. It does go to 2 6 cycles after the first 7 cycle, so it's 7-6-6 on Scald if it still maintains 8 energy generation, whether that be Spark or Whirlpool. So that's option 2. Both require removing Surf. Definitely let me know which one you think would be best suited for Lanturn. Again, I think option 1 is where I'm most leaning. I'm not crazy about option 2. I think having that 5-cycle is very nice on Lanturn for sure. Being able to bait, and even if they do let it go, it's not going to be doing a ton of damage like what Surf is doing. It's not going to be nearly as oppressive. And it can apply a little debuff, which has a nice balanced effect for Lanturn. So these are my potential fixes. These are, I think, the most reasonable fixes without completely making Lanturn completely irrelevant, which I think would be quite catastrophic and very extreme. I don't want to do that to this Pokemon. It has stepped up tremendously in the meta, but again, I can sympathize and feel where some people are coming from on it. But my personal viewpoint, I would just leave it how it is and just introduce more meta threats and go that route. I think that's always the path of least resistance, unless it is absolutely 100% necessary to actually nerf something. So Those are my potential fixes. Now let's look at, we'll set the stage with some buffed moves that are currently in the game and some new moves that we could introduce to set the stage for the meta threats that I would like to see introduced into the Great League meta. So let's look at the moves first. All right, guys, here we are. We've got some new and buffed attacks that will set the stage for some new meta threats that I think would really be quite refreshing for the Great League. And if you're wondering why we've got two fighting type moves here, let me just get into that one before we go on here. So I really feel like the very strong steel types in this meta are playing a massive role in keeping the grass types out of the meta. There are some other things in there like the flyers, like Noctowl and Altaria, the buffed ice types, but the steel types play a very, very strong role in that as well. So buffing some fighters, I think, would indirectly give a very, very slight nerf to steel, which would encourage some more grass type usage down the line. So that's why we've got those two there. But let's start here at the beginning. We've got Whirlpool, which we went over. That's a brand new water type fast move that I would like to see introduced. A Spark Clone 2-turn move. And then we've got Sandstorm, very similar to Whirlpool. That is a brand new rock type fast move. It's a 2-turn move. It is a clone of Wing Attack / Vine Whip / Quick Attack, which I first introduced into my wish list. So we're going to see that on some new meta threats that I'd like to see. So we've got that as well. And then we've got a buff Bulldoze, which we've had on this channel for a while. Bulldoze, just a quick refresher, I would like to see receive a buff. The damage would stay the same at 80. Only what we're going to do to make it better is lower that energy cost from 60 to 50 and give it a 30% chance to lower the opponent's attack by 1 stage, essentially making it a Scald clone. That's what I would like to see for Bulldoze. And then we've got Low Kick, one of the all-time worst fast moves in Pokemon Go. Holy smokes, this move is absolutely terrible. It's a 2-turn fighting type fast move that has very broad distribution. A lot of Pokemon can learn this in the main series, and a lot of Pokemon currently have it in Pokemon Go. It just never gets used because it is awful. So we're going to fix that. I would like to see Low Kick become a Poison Jab clone. It is a 2-turn move already, but the damage will be increased from 4 to 7, and the energy generation will be increased from 5 to 7, making it a Poison Jab clone and making it very much viable for the Pokemon that can learn it and already have it in the game right now. We're going to do the same for Leafage. They meant well with this one. I really appreciate their thought process on it. It just kind of fell flat on its face because it was just doomed from the start. It's not a good move right now. The damage is what's not there on it. So we're going to increase that slightly from 6 to 7, again making it a Poison Jab clone. I think that's going to encourage the usage on it and make it a much more effective 2-turn grass type fast attack. Next, we've got Low Sweep, a charge attack in the game that is terrible, awful, very bad, awful. One of the worst, definitely one of the worst moves in the game right now. It's a fighting type charge move that does not get used. Again, has very broad distribution, much like Low Kick does, but just doesn't get used. A lot of Pokemon can learn this. So what we're going to do to improve this move is just do a modest buff on it. We're not doing anything too crazy here. The damage per energy is going to be 1.5, which is very moderate. So what we're going to do, increase the damage from 40 to 60, and we're going to keep the energy cost the same. So a nice mid-type, fighting type fast move that's not going to debuff you or make you want to swap out or anything like that. Just a nice, moderate, mid-type of charge attack for fighters. And then we've got Grassy Glide. This is mostly to fix Trevenant. Has very solid distribution. A lot of Pokemon can learn this move, But if you did not catch my Medicham video, we will go over it briefly here. I want to bring Trevenant back to prominence in the Great League. That's going to fix a lot of what we are seeing right now. That's going to keep Lanturn in check, as well as keep Noctowl in check as well, and would be quite nice to not allow the Mud Boys to get too far out of control. So Grassy Glide, we are going to introduce this. It's not the best move in the world, but it's basically going to be what Seed Bomb was for Trevenant before they messed around with Seed Bomb. So it's going to be doing 55 damage and costing 40 energy. It is exactly what Seed Bomb was. We can give this to Trevenant initially. Other Pokemon can learn this as well, so if we want to give it to other grass types to encourage that usage, by all means. But Trevenant absolutely has to get something like this to bring it back to where it was in the meta. That is very necessary. Unnecessarily nerfing Trevenant was quite catastrophic, and that is exactly what we are seeing with Medicham and Lanturn right now in the Great League. So just bringing Trevenant back would alleviate a lot of what we are seeing right now. So this is my proposed fix for Trevenant. Those are the new and buffed attacks. Let's have a look at the grass types. All right, guys, here we go. We got some buffed grass types that I would like to see injected into the Great League meta to address Lanturn. So here we are. We've got the moves in the top left corner as a friendly reminder for you. And I know Trevenant is off to the side, but that is the one we are starting with. As I mentioned with Grassy Glide, they meant well. They wanted to give Seed Bomb to some other Pokemon, but not have Trevenant be broken, so they adjusted it. That was quite bad for Trevenant, and we are feeling the effects of that right now this season. So what we're going to do in my proposed rebalance is introduce a new grass type charge attack, Grassy Glide. A lot of Pokemon can also learn this move in the main series, so you can give it to other grass types as well if you so choose. But Trevenant 100% has to get a move like this. We have to put it back to where it was before they adjusted Seed Bomb and took Trevenant off of a 5 cycle and put it onto a 6 cycle. That extra fast move is not doing Trevenant any favors, and that is what we are seeing right now. The usage has dropped off of a cliff. So let's bring Trevenant back to where it was. We're not doing anything but bringing it back to where it was. It was fine where it was at. It wasn't particularly broken. It's not a particularly bulky Pokemon, so that balances out. We're going to give it this move. It seems counterintuitive to introduce a not-so-good move, but that's what we need to do to bring Trevenant back to where it was. That's going to solve quite a bit of what we're seeing right now, right off the bat. Just bringing Trevenant back to where it was. We can do that with a move like Grassy Glide. Next, so now I'll go from left to right. And we've got Torterra here. Would be getting my proposed new fast type rock type move. Doesn't have stab, but it gives it a fighting chance up against flyers. It has excellent charge moves. I did also propose a Sand Tomb buff in my wish list. That would, if we were to do something like that, that would also certainly help it out. But I think giving it a viable charge move is where we need to begin to bring this thing into the meta. Already has access to Stone Edge. Of course, we know Frenzy Plant with its Calm Day. This thing just drastically needs a good charge move. So a wing attack clone that deals rock type damage, I think would be quite nice. Doesn't have stab, but would apply some nice fast move pressure to those flyers. It also has Stone Edge, Sand Tomb, and Frenzy Plant. Then we've got Ferrothorn here. Ferrothorn has solid bulk. Has a very respectable stat product for the Great League. It goes unused because of the steel types. Also, Medicham and Deoxys don't help that cause as well. So we can at least give it something like a buffed Bulldoze to at least give it a fighting chance, encourage people to use it more. It would have some play into the steel types. It could defend itself, not completely helpless, while also being a very strong grass type that could address Lanturn and the Mud Boys that are on the rise. So that's what I would like to see. Let's give Ferrothorn some nice play into the steel types. And then we've got Ludicolo getting some love, getting my newly proposed Spark clone that deals water type fast move damage, coming in the form of Whirlpool, while also giving it a bait move, which this thing absolutely needs to become relevant, coming in the form of Surf. Ludicolo doesn't hit particularly hard, so I don't think Surf would be... We'll see. We can see. It's not as bulky as Lanturn, so it's not going to seem as oppressive. It's not going to be hanging in there till the very end, if you know what I mean. It's not as bulky as Lanturn, so it won't be lasting as long. So I think a 5-cycle on Surf will not feel nearly as oppressive as it does on Lanturn. And then we've got Tropius getting a lot of attention here. It would get Magical Leaf, which is already in the game. It's a 3-turn fast move in the game right now, dealing 10 base damage and generating 10 energy. We would also give it some much-needed Steel-type coverage, which would encourage the usage rate, introducing another very strong, bulky grass type into the meta. I wanted to find some grass types with decent stat products. A lot of them are quite squishy, which again is not why we're seeing a lot of them, but I've got some of the bulkier ones here, Tropius being at the top of the list. So if we can buff Tropius, allow it to deal some decent fast move pressure, not having to run Razor Leaf, which, it doesn't generate energy very fast. It needs a decent fast move. And Magical Leaf would have stab, generate energy, moderate energy generation, and a buffed Bulldoze would really help it out up against those steel types. And then we've got Quilladin, a Pokemon that we don't often think about. Has decent bulk, has a decent stat product for being a second stage evolution. But what I would like to do is give it some play into the steel types by giving it my buffed low sweep. It already has Body Slam, guys. A lot of people don't realize that because they don't think about using Quilladin, and I understand why, because it does not have any play into Steel, and Steel is quite strong, always has been, and I think always will be. So giving it that play into the Steel, I think, would increase the usage, while also providing another solid answer to Lanturn and the Mud Boys that are on the rise. It runs Vine Whip as well, by the way, so it's just one decent charge move away from being quite relevant in the meta, and I think giving it that Steel play into Steel types and Steel coverage would be quite nice on it. So these are the grass types that I would propose buffing. Definitely let me know what you guys think, which one you think would be most impactful in the meta, aside from Trevenant. That goes without mentioning, but yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And now we can look at some ground types. All right, my friends, moving right along into the ground types. This category I am very excited for. So we've got the moves up in the top left corner as a reminder for you, and we are kicking things off with Whiscash. Yes, sign me up. Whiscash needs to become much more meta relevant. It got a great start with the Mud Bomb buff, but it's still not being used as much as I would like to see, and as much as Niantic had hoped, I believe. And that is because Blizzard is holding it back. It is far too predictable. If they are farming for days, you know what's coming your way. And it is far too expensive to not build all the way up to that and not go for it. So we're going to balance that out. It'll still obviously have Blizzard in its move pool, but we're going to add Rock Slide. I've proposed Icy Wind in the past. I think with the bulk, that would be too oppressive and maybe a bit broken. Actually, it would be quite broken. So I've come back down to earth on that one. And I will settle for Rock Slide, while also giving it my new proposed Water-type fast move. That would give it some nice play into the Flyers as well, being able to deal neutral fast move pressure with Stab. And just another nice option as opposed to Mud Shot, which you could still definitely use as well. I think the more broad a Pokemon's move pool is, the more variety we will see, which will not be so rigid and feel so RPS'd. It'll spice things up a bit. So a second option on the fast move as well that still has moderate energy generation. So yeah, Rock Slide gives it that play up against the Flyers. I think that would really, really put Whiscash over the edge and make it full-on legitimate meta. And I think Whirlpool would be a nice added touch as well. And then we've got Claydol, another bulky ground type that does not get used. What we're going to be doing for this thing is giving it a solid fast move. Much like with Torterra, it would not have Stab, but it would give it that play into the Flyers. So Sandstorm it would get, and it would get a bait move. They have given this thing just about every charge move known to man, and it still goes unused. It needs a bait move. It needs a lower energy cost move. That's what's holding it back, as well as having to rely on confusion. So we're going to fix that. We're going to give it a more dynamic fast move that has coverage, as well as giving it a bait move with stab. It has amazing nuke moves, guys. This thing has Earth Power. This thing has Shadow Ball. This thing has Ice Beam. Let's give it a bait move so that we can make it a little bit more usable and not have to rely on those crazy nukes that it has. This, I think, would really put this thing over the edge. It would introduce a nice answer to both Medicham and Lanturn to an extent. It has the bulk to hang in there with Lanturn, taking that super effective fast move pressure. Has a very, very good stat product. So that's what I want to see for Claydol. Then we've got Marowak, another bulky ground type that does not get used. This thing also got Rock Slide not too long ago, but it still goes unused because it has to rely on a very bad... I'm not going to say very bad, but a subpar fast move coming in the form of Mud Slap. It's very slow, not the best DPE or EPT. So let's give this thing Sandstorm as well, a more dynamic 2-turn fast move, gives it play into those flyers. As well as a buffed Bulldoze with Stab, which it can learn in the main series. By the way, all of these Pokemon can learn these in the main series, so they are definitely possible for Pokemon Go. So yeah, a buffed Bulldoze, Scald Clone doing ground type damage, has the bulk to withstand at least one water type charge attack. And I think that would be nice for Lanturn as well as the steel types. So... And then we've got Seismitoad, decent stat product, not the greatest, about average, I would say. So I would like to see this thing get Icy Wind, give it that grass and flying type coverage. Not as bulky as Whiscash, so it's not going to feel as oppressive as it would have on Whiscash, which I have proposed in the past. So yeah, I think that would be fair on this thing. It's not as bulky, so it's not going to feel as oppressive. So it would give it that nice grass and flying type coverage, has access to Earth Power. It would be a nice bait move for it. Runs Mud Shot. You could also run Bubble on it as the fast moves. Currently, I think those are fine where they are. I just think it needs a nice bait move. Another Pokemon that only has nuke moves. I'm not even going to entertain Muddy Water. That does not count in my opinion. That is not a good move. So Icy Wind on this thing. Then we've got Gastrodon, another decently bulky ground type that I would like to see in the meta to address some of those steel types, as well as Lanturn. The problem with this thing is it has, much like with Marowak, it has to rely on Mud Slap. I don't think that's a good idea. Let's give it Water Pool, my new 2-turn water type fast move. Has Body Slam. It doesn't hit particularly hard, so maybe a 5-4 cycle on Body Slam might not be that bad. But we will see. It doesn't hit particularly hard. And with some new grass types in the meta, it might not stick around long enough, if you know what I mean. So let's give it that play. I think that would help this thing out and make it a little bit more meta relevant in the Open Great League. And then we've got Nidoqueen. This one I've been hammering home for a while now on this channel. I really want to see Nidoqueen get Shadow Claw. I think that would be a very nice... refreshing upgrade for Nidoqueen. Give it some more variety. You don't just have to rely on Poison Jab, which is fine if you do, but I think Shadow Claw would be amazing. Both for the Great League and in the Ultra League would provide an excellent answer to Medicham, which we so desperately need, as well as giving yet another strong ground type that can put in work up against the very strong steel types, which I think are playing a huge role in keeping the grass types out of the meta, which is why Lanturn feels very, very oppressive. So let's do this for Nidoqueen, and let's give Diggersby some much needed coverage on the flyers. I've proposed Body Slam in the past. I think that would maybe break Diggersby, much like my proposal with Whiscash. Again, I've come back down to earth a little bit on Diggersby. Let's give it Rock Slide. That's a nice compromise. Would give it that much needed flying type coverage, as well as introducing a very strong Pokemon with an amazing stat product into the meta, which we so desperately need. It has quick attack and Mud Shot, of course, Earthquake. You can still run Fire Punch if you want. It just mixes things up a bit, but Rock Slide would be amazing for Diggersby and would definitely make it a much more prominent meta threat into the meta. Another answer for those steel types as well as Lanturn. So this is what I want to see for the ground types, and let's have a quick peek at some potential fighters. All right, last but not least, we've got the fighters here to balance out the steel types and give a nice little indirect nerf to the steels in the meta to encourage some more grass type usage for Lanturn. So starting things off, we've got the moves up there to remind you. Let's just go left to right. So let's buff Throw. Throw is quite bulky, just does not have the moves. The moves that it has are just awful. So we're buffing 2 moves that it already has in its move pool right now. It has low kick. It also has low sweep. So let's buff those moves and make this thing usable to provide another fighter into the meta to balance out the steel. That's what I want to do for Throw. I wanted some Pokemon with some decent stats. Gallade and Beware notwithstanding, but they just happen to benefit from the low kick buff. And then we've got Chestnut here. Also has low kick right now. Doesn't get used. I think having a nice, it's a slight. It's not counter, but it's good enough. A Poison Jab clone would be quite nice on this thing. It cannot learn counter, so let's go with the next best thing, and that is a buffed low kick for it. Let's do this. This would give it that much needed fast move pressure for the steels. And that's all we'll do for this. Just buffing low kick would drastically increase the usage on Chestnut 100%. Just think about Virizion in the Ultra League. Why is that used and why is Chestnut not used? Because it can apply that super effective fast move pressure as a fighter to the steels. That's why. Let's do that for this thing here. And then we've got Gallade and Beware at the bottom. They benefit by default. Gallade I would be a little bit more excited for than Beware, but we can see what Beware can do with a buffed low kick. I think it can do some things. Shadow Claw still might be the way to go, but low kick would be very interesting on it. And the same goes for Gallade. It would be able to be much more viable as a fighter in the meta, both in the Great and Ultra League. So those two benefit as well from a low kick buff. And then we've got these ones off to the side here. Hakomo O, we want to buff and make much more meta relevant by giving it low kick, which it can learn in the main series, does not currently learn it now in Pokemon Go, as well as giving it close combat. And we would do the same for Como O, its evolution. 2 more fighters in the meta that also happen to address Lanturn quite well, guys. You see where I'm going with that? We can give 2 fighters that can keep the steels in check, encourage that grass type usage while also addressing Lanturn at the same time. How about that? Imagine that. Holy smokes. So we would give Como a low kick, which it does not currently learn right now in Go, and of course buffed low kick for both of those 2. And then Quilladin somehow made it into this graphic. I know we already highlighted that in the grass type, but nothing has changed. It just somehow made it here. I don't know why I put that in there twice, but hey. Just a reminder, giving it a buffed low sweep would be quite nice. And then low punny, not a fighter, but I guess technically it does as a mega, so here it is. It runs double kick, quite bulky, a bulky normal type. I want to give this thing Shadow Ball. I think that would replace the 2 nuke options that it has now. Running something like double kick, it just takes forever to get to Hyper Beam and Focus Blast. That's a little unreasonable, guys. Let's give it Shadow Ball, which it can learn. It can do neutral fast move pressure to just about everything in the meta, while still being able to fight back against opposing normal types with double kick, and it can spam off those fire punches as well. So that's what I want to see for a low punny. I think that would drastically increase the usage on low punny, and would be a quite nice a nice addition to the Great League meta. So yeah, again, quite bulky. All of these Pokemon, with the exception of Gallade and Beware, have very nice bulk. And would see some increased usage to keep those steel types in check, further encouraging that grass type usage. And that about wraps it up. This thing, again, just like with Metacham, was way too long, but I wanted to do it right and lay it out all for you guys and explain my thought process on this. So that's what I want to see. That's what we've got. Definitely let me know what you think. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. Yeah, so let's see these things. That's what I would propose. And yeah, guys, I had a blast. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I thank you for watching and keep up the grind. Thank you, guys.